Hey, God knows who it is. Hold on. Honestly, given the way that January has come in, I'm going to just let this just for a second.
But not too long.
Not too long. But we need to. Hi, everybody. It's Blair.
And I'm Brandon, also known as The Bay.
And we are the Blairisms. And we are excited to be back, actually. This is the first in the second iteration of the Black is Brilliant Power Speaker Series. You know, we started this partnership along with our dear friends, family over at Black Education for New Orleans, Black NOLA. And last year, we were honored to sit down with some of the guardians of Black education in New Orleans. Some of the founders, some of the leaders, some of those who matriculated through some of the finest institutions created specifically for the enrichment, the elevation, and the progression of specifically our people.
Oh, yeah.
And so to be back here in part two of this with a similar
but more enhanced,
but much more enhanced
program
and programming. And let's be clear, we had some dynamite folks that we talked to last year.
We did.
And we have some extraordinary folks that we're going to talk to this year.
Absolutely.
But let's start.
I mean, so this year we're really excited about the Black is Brilliant Community Power Study Series because it's not only going to include this virtual speaker series that we're doing today and for the next 5 months, but it's also going to include live study groups here in New Orleans. So to talk more about the full work of BNOLA and the Black is Brilliant Community Power Studies series, let's welcome.
Before we welcome Stevie, I thought you were going to say,
go ahead.
If you missed any of the videos and recordings that we did in the first iteration of this series, please, on the same YouTube channel that you are on now, on BNOLA's YouTube channel, you will find a playlist. So make sure you subscribe, but you will find a playlist of those conversations. So please make sure you take advantage of the brilliant that we were able to unearth last year, talking to all of the incredible folks. Now,
all right, everybody, without any further ado, let's welcome Stevona.
Hi, everybody. I'm so excited that we're here. I'm Stevona Elam Rogers, but I'm known as Stevie Like Wonder around these parts, and I'm so happy to be here with the Blairisms. Thank you so much.
Stevie, I'm so honored to be back working with
y'all. We love y'all. It's such a joy.
So much. Okay.
BNOLA is a space that I lead alongside Adrinda Kelly, who is our executive director, and she is here with us in spirit tonight. At BNOLA, our work is centered on helping Black educators be their best selves all day, every day. The speaker series is one of the key ways that we pour into our ecosystem by creating a space for connection, learning, and of course, growth. Tonight is part two of our series. Give it up for part two.
Wait, Stevie,
they missed the body roll. They missed the body roll.
No.
Come on, part two.
Part two.
Let's say when you're invited back, that means you showed up right the first time.
We did it right the first time.
We learned
We learned so much.
I mean, honestly, like the conversations that we had with St. Aug and St. Mary's,
35. Even as a Purple Knight, I can say that the conversation.
Oh my gosh!
I'm gonna catch some heat for this.
Here you go, Blair.
Anyway, I'm not gonna go down that road. Go ahead, Steve. I'm gonna let you finish. No, please.
But we've got part two tonight, and from part two, what we started doing was developing our Black is Brilliant syllabus, and we did that alongside partnership with the Institute of Mental Hygiene, who is so thoughtfully invested in our mission. And so from that syllabus, we'll be studying in New Orleans on the ground, and also wanted to create an opportunity where we could continue learning in this format virtually and, of course, nationally. So our core themes, we have many of them, but the first one is actually high expectations with love, which we will get into tonight. And I could not think of two better Black women to lead this conversation as truly masters of their craft than Dr. Akosua Lassane and Dr. Vera Triplett. I met Dr. Akosua Lassane through the Sisters in Education Circle, a collective she founded for Black women educators. And I was like on a path and needed to be brought back. And she helped me see that our imagination as Black people is key to our survival and thrival. She's everything. Her Black teacher tradition framework is iconic and truly shapes so much of our work and thinking here at Binola. And I'm so grateful to have her here tonight. We also have Dr. Vera Triplett, who hands down is one of the best school leaders and really leaders in this city, period. And that's a strong period. Her school, Noble Mind. Period. Per. Don't even stop.
I knew I was going to get you to go the next. I knew I was going to get you to
stop.
go
I'm trying to channel Dren, okay? Her
Dren
school
will be mad at us.
No, I know she's gonna be mad at us. We got her cut up. She's gonna be like,
not,
see.
Honestly, part of what we all talked about, and this is why I'm being a little bit more. And like I mentioned when we came on, January has come in hot, right?
And it's still here.
And
the never-ending month that is
tomorrow here. Tomorrow's the 56th of January. And so we also, in part of, I think, this idea of, and one of the things we learned last year is that joy is a part of why Black education and Black pedagogy is so important, because joy is such a part of it. And given how we have just this last few weeks has been just exercising a little joy.
Fun tonight,
so
y'all.
Without further ado, I'm gonna let you finish your introduction.
I want to make sure I say my part about Dr. Vera.
Please, please finish.
Her school, Noble Minds Institute for Whole Child Learning, is exactly what it claims to be. It is the name. They do educate the whole child, and their students feel it. They are excited to come to school. She runs one of the only schools in the city that does not suspend its students, and they thrive academically. I've seen it with my own eyes over a number of years. These are two dynamic, brilliant women that in our political landscape right now are the best people for us to learn from, to lean into, to figure out how we hold the bar with ourselves and with our children, to have high expectations, but to make sure that it is covered deeply, deeply, deeply in love. So thank you both for being here. Without further ado, Blair and Brandon, let's get into it.
Let's get it. Thank you, Stevie.
Yes. Let's welcome Dr. Akosua Lassane and Dr. Vera Triplett, y'all.
Welcome.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all for indulging us with your introductions.
Yes.
Let's jump right into it. I want to ask, because the thing I'm thinking about as we were talking through the idea of high expectations with love and the other themes that are captured in the developing digital syllabus, and Black education for New Orleans the attempt is to codify in some way this idea. You have begun it with the Black teaching tradition, right? What I couldn't help but think about is I can't imagine there's any especially American codified educational curriculum, right? That students are being tested on or have to be or being held to, any standards that they're being held to, that mention love anywhere, right?
Right.
That mention anything about love, right?
Right.
So what is I want to, before we talk about what that looks like in the presence of it, what does that mean in the absence of it for our children?
Well, I'm not sure which one of us you're asking.
Whoever going to take it, let's go.
Blair's a very much let's just go. Throw the
let's go.
So Dr.
Let's go.
So I think, interestingly enough, in the absence of it is sort of what you see happening in the world now.
Mhm.
And so you see a real disconnection, human to human connection, that is essentially just grounded in the fact that we are all people trying to survive on this big rock, right, that we call Earth. And in the absence of teaching, because you really do, love is learned, right? It's learned, much like hate can be learned as well.
Yes.
And so it is something that you have to teach. Love, compassion, consideration is the highest form of love. And that's one of the things that people learn in school first, because for some people, for most children, it's the first time that they have to consider people outside of their bubble.
Yeah.
Consideration. No, please, Dr. Lassane, please go
Yeah,
ahead.
absolutely. And coming from the standpoint of, thinking about teachers, right? And what does it look like when there are high expectations coming from the teacher without love? And so what that means is that a lot of ideas that actually came from Black folks, right? Because y'all know in every field in the United States, like American culture is Black culture, right? The music, the intellectual thought, the art, like all of the things.
Well,
And
not even just the United States. I mean, the first thing I thought about when you
Right.
said that, I always think about how they credit Pythagoras with the theorem of triangles when the pyramids had already been built.
Thousands of years, right? Like, yeah. And so that's exactly the case for Black teaching. Black, we do this as Black people, as African people, and so so what happens is a lot of what people are putting forth in education, and certainly have put forth since since Leave Every Child Behind. I mean, since No Child Left Behind, like and all those things. A lot of what they put forth as cutting edge and all these things are things that they really have taken from the Black teaching tradition, have taken from this legacy of Black teaching excellence, but they have taken the love out of it.
Yeah.
And so what that looks like is it becomes weaponized on Black children, right? So high expectations becomes a 5-year-old has to walk in a straight line. A 5-year-old gets, kicked out of school because their shirt is not tucked in. It looks like only judging their potential and their capacity by these standardized tests, the high stake tests that have never been verified. None of those tests have ever been proven to be an accurate reflection of the children's capacity, of where they are.
That's right.
None of them. And so that's what, so that's what it looks like. It looks like weaponization of this false thing of like, oh, we're having high expectations, but it's really militarization. Right. It really is feeding them into this pipeline where everybody is making money off of them. Right. Because think about how much money was made off of these standardized tests. And, and so like the test makers,
the prep people,
what is so interesting.
Yeah. And so, sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, as you're describing this,
sounds like a racket.
But I was going to say, it is exactly mirroring the experience that the students would have if they were to end up in the incarceration system. If they would end up incarcerated, like they would have to walk in the straight lines. They would be completely restricted from expressing freedom and be in this kind of militarized state.
Right.
That is so powerful. And what for me is beautiful about the I would say the progressive way which Dr. Triplett with which you are engaging with these students specifically around addressing the whole child and not suspending them. As someone who was suspended twice, right? I know you would. What I understand about discipline within the Black experience tends to be harsh, right? So as we're talking about high expectations and discipline, how do we make sure that we, to your point, Dr. Lassane, keep the love in there, but then also maintain and hold ourselves up to these high standards that we know that we can achieve? And Dr. Hussein, because I cut you off, I'm sorry. I'll let you, and then.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, what I'm thinking about is we invented that whole thing of like love and high expectations, right? And again, it has been misrepresented. Some of us drank the Kool-Aid and, took the love out of the tough love, right? There is a phrase and there's a concept in education called the warm demander. And so when Black teachers are teaching according to the Black teaching tradition, it's that warm demanding, right? It's like, now, bae, you're not supposed to be out here. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're not supposed to be out here in this hallway without a pass.
Right.
So, it's that, right. So it's that warmth of like, you're supposed to go back, but it's not like I'm going to suspend you, send you to the office, et cetera, et cetera. It's that warmth of like, here is the expectation. I'm going to give you an opportunity to get it together, right? I'm not going to back off the expectation, but I'm not going to beat you over the head with it. And so I do understand and appreciate what you're saying, that there have been, and I would never negate that, there definitely is a harshness that can happen among us as people. But what I want people to reclaim is that legacy of Black teaching excellence, where Black educators had that balance. And sometimes they had to get with you, right? Because you got too far to bounds, you know what I'm saying? But those are also the same teachers who would come by your house and make sure you were eating. Those are also the same teachers who all of a sudden somebody paid your light bill and you didn't know that they even knew that your lights were off, right? And so I want us to reclaim, because we do have improvement to do among ourselves as people. So I want us to reclaim and take ownership that, no, we invented the warm demander approach, right? We invented that grandmama, like, come on in here, the street lights are on, right? Like, come on in, so you knew you had to come in, but we didn't beat you over the head with it. And so I just want us to reclaim that tradition because we invented it.
And I just want to know for folks who are watching, please feel free to put comments, questions in the chat box, and we will address any comments or questions that come through. Thank you.
Dr. Triplett, please.
Yeah, so I think there are a couple of things that Dr. Hussein said that were, it just sort of triggered a few comments that I want to make, but I do want to go back to this idea of the warm demander and sort of where that went. And I think a part of where we lost that really is around the adultification of Black children, right? And so making Black children be responsible in ways that that children from other cultures are not. And so
that's right.
The impact of the frontal lobe not being fully developed until
you were hitting I was 6'1" in the 8th grade, so you were hitting me all over the head right now.
Listen, and not getting the same level of empathy and care and understanding around the fact that you are just a child. And so I bump up against this even with the parents of those children, right? Where I have to say, no, I actually am not upset with such and such. I actually expect that child to behave that way because that child is a child. I expect the parent to have to act as their ego strength. But going back to something that Dr. Hussein said about the uniforms and the kids getting into trouble for not tucking their shirts in. So when I was developing my school, when I was founding my school, I made a very it was a decision that was really couched in this idea that I did not want the first interaction I had with a student every day to be one that was around whether or not your shirt was tucked in.
Come on.
Why our school doesn't have a uniform policy. So our kids can come to school dressed in any way that they would like, as long as it's not vulgar or inappropriate. Right. So we have kids as a result that come dressed as superheroes. We have kids that come dressed as princesses. We have, because at the end of the day, I really don't care what you have on. And I don't want my first interaction with you to be adversarial.
So good. So good.
When you create, these boxes to put children into, and the minute that they walk in the door, the first interaction is adversarial, then you are not starting the day off with any sort of love and compassion. And so sometimes it's really simple things like that that can change the culture of the entire day.
Having both obviously gone to a high school that was very rigid in a lot of ways, I would also say though, with love, there were a lot of the expectations that I was given at St. Aug were given with love, right? They didn't hit the mark all the time, right? I mean, we're talking about the 90s and toxic masculinity before it was even had a name, right? But having also worked in a school, right? And which was interesting about what I'm hearing you say, Dr. Triplett, especially about this idea of how you set the tone for the day. I often hear adults talk about young people as if they don't deserve that consideration about how their day is, right? It's this thing about, you're not paying bills. So how you feeling really is not, how your whole day is going isn't necessarily something that I have heard many, not recently, but definitely when I was in school, it didn't seem and appear that it was more about following the structure of what, we had a uniform. I wore a uniform to high school. I had to wear a tie every day. It had to be, all of that, those kinds of things. I mean, I couldn't even wear my hair. Listen, I can't teach at my alma mater right now without cutting my hair.
Yeah. So interestingly enough, that you mentioned that. So I went to McMain in the 80s. And my school at that time, McMain, was a very diverse school. We did not wear uniforms. We had off-campus lunch. We were allowed to be people, humans, young humans, but humans still the same. I do think that there is this idea that children don't deserve to be treated like human beings in some instances. And I very often say to people, particularly around when we are in political cycles, right? And you hear politicians talking about, because this is about the kids. I am always the first person to remind people, children do not have money and they don't vote. Nothing is about the kids. Nothing is about the kids.
Say that.
And so, I'm sure Dr. Lassane would agree with that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm sure that you all have noticed the theme with me. So I'm always going to pull us back to our tradition, right? And to a tradition that is hundreds of years old, on these shores and thousands of years old, right, around the world in pre-colonial Africa. And so I'm not at all negating these examples. And I also want us to know that even in the 1800s, right, there were Black educators, many of whom Black women educators who got this, right? So Mama Mary McLeod Bethune, when she opened her school for girls, she would greet the students every morning, each one by one, and say, "Good morning, little girl. I hope you're very happy with us today." And so that's not something that's pulled forth in that tradition, right? Because we pulled forth from that tradition, because over time some of us have taken on the sternness, but then there is also a stereotype about Black teachers, right? Like other teachers are the fun and progressive and engaging ones. And that's simply ahistorical, right? Right. And so, when you look at Mary McLeod Bethune, you look at that statue, right? Maybe based on whatever stereotypes you're holding, you can't imagine her standing at the door every morning and greeting every little girl and saying, "Good morning, little girl. Thank you for being here with us. We hope that you are very happy with us today." Right. And so I'm always going to, bring us back to reclaiming that. And, and we do need to reclaim it. Right. So, there's some work that we need to do. And also the work is getting back to who we've always been.
Yes.
Yeah. No.
Yes.
I think there's something that's so powerful in kind of honoring exactly what we know works and has worked for thousands of years, and bringing it into a modern context that addresses our current needs and the current situation that we all find
here's the
ourselves
thing. There is a design to it being stripped from us.
Yes.
Because with that kind of rearing, teaching from, I mean, you know, Mama Oretha and Baba Richards started the Learning Workshop in 1980 based on the African proverb, children are the reward of life, because they knew that if you didn't get a child very, very early, that was where you needed to incubate the brilliance that was in them, begin to cultivate that within the child at the very, very earliest possible age. And so and we talked about this in the first iteration of the series, but one of the things, and that's what, how do we address, and I guess part of that is starting your own school, right? But how do we address, or what do we do for those young people who aren't at Noble Minds, right? Who are in the wilderness of the education landscape and attempting to, who are being held to high expectations.
Yeah, I mean, we
without
have people
love.
from across the country here who are educators who are impacting young Black children on a daily basis. How do we encourage them, or what can we encourage them to do to lift up and hold their students with those kind of high expectations and love that we know that they have within them as well?
Yes, absolutely. I'm sorry. I am cracking up at Stevie's
comment. I was going to stop. I was going to pause everybody for us to take a second about this. But Stevie, that Stevie would have a Mary McLeod Bethune story.
Yes.
To me at all.
I am hollering about that. My apologies. Can you restate the question very quickly? That comment is everything to me right now.
So what I was saying was, as Dr. So you know, I think I think part of the answer to this question, right, is we have our own schools. We create our own frameworks. We create our own space. I also want to talk about once after we talk about this, because this is I'm right now addressing going to ask Dr. Triplett to address.
I think she was responding. I had a question that I had asked specifically around supporting the educators, because you brought up an interesting point around policy and around kind of the landscape of where we are, and what, for the people who are out there listening across the country, what are some of the things that we can do as a community to support them, or that we need to be encouraging them to do?
Oh, that wasn't the question I had asked Dr. Triplett. I asked a completely different.
There are a couple of different questions floating.
I asked Dr. Triplett a question about, because she started Noble Minds, and I was saying, what do we do for the students and for the young people who are not in a school, who don't have that kind of school? Was that a question you asked?
I guess
about educators.
Honing is a question.
Well, but here's the thing, though, right? My question is specifically around students, but that's a good segue, because what I also want to know, as you're talking about educators and what we can do, I also want to talk about Sisters in Education Circle and the space that has been created for educators and for teachers to convene. But Dr. Triplett, and to you, Dr. Lassane, what about students who are not, who can't access a school like Noble Minds? What do we do? How do we address those who are still in the wilderness of high expectations without love?
So, you know, the one thing that I want to make sure I say before we finish this is, you know, high expectations is a very subjective term. So our high expectations according to who?
To who?
And what are those, and how are they defined based on the individual student? Because high expectations for one student are different from high expectations from another. And so we have a way of collectivizing children. And we have a way of not seeing their individual light, right?
Mhm.
And so, what we can do for children who are not in the best of situations is that we can see all of them. We can see them, whether we see them in school or on the street or at the grocery store, in the church, we can see them. Um, I think, and we can see them for everything that they are, and we can allow them to be children. See, one thing that is disturbing to me is that Black children don't get to be children for very long.
Right.
And they don't get to experience the joy of just being and making mistakes and not being perfect, right? And so I think that those are some of the things that we need to be asking. Whose expectations are these that we are calling high, that we are holding our children to? So, there's that. And there was another, I think, thing that someone mentioned, and I can't remember. My memory is horrible. I'm but somebody mentioned the walking in lines and the sort of penal, that the schools are mimicking the prison system. Well, that's by design.
Absolutely.
Understand that that's by design. And I think that one of the things that's really, really interesting to me is I come to this work from 3 different lenses, right? So education, mental health, and juvenile justice reform. And I remember I watched this documentary. It was about a prison in Denmark. And the prison in Denmark is like a condo in the warehouse district of New Orleans, right? And the person that was making the documentary said to the people that ran that prison, he said, "Why do you treat these people so well? Why are you making them so comfortable?" He said, "They're people. And eventually they're going to go back out into the world." And so if you treat a child in a school system as if they are in a prison system, and then you tell them at the same time, you should want to be educated, you should be a lifelong learner. But then I equate learning with
to the place
that obstructs me and penalizes me. I don't want to be a lifelong
and
learner.
traumatizes me, really.
Out. Just like people just want to get out of jail.
Right.
Get out.
Right.
That's
So
right.
we have to think about those things.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. And I think, my response very much compliments and echoes Dr. Triplett in that, starting off by saying these are all my children, all of them, right? And so that's part of our legacy as well. Like all of these kids are my children, right? From 8 to 2, I'm calling you or beyond, but just thinking about the school day, I'm calling the parent just to consult with the parent, because during the school day, these are my children. And I don't say that in a controlling way. I say that I'm going to look out for you the way I look out for my very own children. And so there's that caring and that love. And so whether they're in our school, whether we run into them at the grocery store, at our places of worship, at the family reunion, at the cookout, down the street, we can still express those things to them, right? I mean, I completely agree. We do need to have our own institutions. We need to take control of the institutions that we're in. We need to, if we're in an institution, if only in your classroom, you need to hold up that standard, right? So there's lots of different answers to that question. But wherever you find them, these are my kids, and I'm going to express those things. And I would say for teachers, again, tapping back into that ancestral knowledge, right? And so one of the comments that I get, whether it's from Sisters in Education Circle or Black Teaching to Tradition gatherings, over and over again, people say, you're bringing out something that I knew in my heart to do. These are just things that I knew to do. But sometimes that knowing gets suppressed right? Because it's not always valued, because the institutions are not invested in Black children being human beings. And so sometimes that teacher or those teachers who are doing what they know in their hearts to do, get critiqued. And so I'm just going to say, keep doing what you know in your heart to do, because the ancestors, our ancestors in education are speaking. They are speaking to us, and not in some kooky, impractical way, in very practical ways. That thing that you know in your heart to do, do it at all costs, because this is our inheritance. And if I can just, I never speak about education without speaking about Asa Hilliard. And so so there's a quote that I always share with people, and he says, many of us do not know it, but African people have thousands of years of well-recorded, deep thought about educational excellence. Teaching and shaping of character is one of our great strengths. This is what we do. We are a teaching people. So tap back into ancestors, Black ancestors in education are speaking to us and in this moment, and want to be heard. And so, and also thinking about high expectations, I'm getting old. I can't really read this, but this is another Baba Asa thing where he talks about, going back to what Dr. Triplett said, we set the standard. He says, so there is a gap, but it's not between Black children and white children. It's between Black children and their highest potential, that we set the standard of excellence. And so closing that gap between, not comparing them to white children, and not necessarily, as Dr. Triplett said, comparing them to each other, but what is our highest understanding of their highest potential. And that's the gap. That's the gap that we must be filling.
Ooh, see, this is why we decided that we was going to go ahead, for all of those who are tuning in for the first time. When we started the Black is Brilliant speaker series last year with Binola, and brought some incredible leaders in education from around New Orleans together, there was just so much that we had to that we knew that we had to continue this and bring in some national voices. Because what's so interesting is that a lot of the conversations that we were having about New Orleans schools, we know are things that are happening all over the U.S. And with this current situation that the U.S. finds itself in,
it's just been 8 days, y'all. It's just been 8 days.
I am worried but optimistic about some of the policy changes that are being implemented. So I'm curious, from your perspective, Dr. Lassane and Dr. Triplett, what do you hope doesn't happen, and what do you hope does happen from a policy perspective that you think can help your students and all of our Black students achieve the best that they can possibly achieve?
Well, I'll start, is because I run a school, and so policy impacts me greatly. In terms of what I hope, I have no hope. I don't hope anything. I don't have any confidence at all in the competency of this administration. And so I don't hope, believe, wish, count on any policy that will be beneficial to any children, to be perfectly frank, unless they are being privately educated in schools that their parents pay tens of thousands of dollars a month for. So I will tell you that if we are waiting for policy practices that are meant to assist us in the education of our most vulnerable citizens, we're going to be waiting for 4 years or more. I think that what we need to do, number one, is speak truth to power every chance we get. That's our weapon, our voice. And we also need to be very, very honest with our children about what is happening. They see it, they hear it, and they can understand it. And they will reach whatever our expectation and goal is for them, and what we tell them that they are capable of. The bottom line is we are in for some very tumultuous times by design, right? But look at us here, all still here. They've been trying to get rid of us for a long time.
Yes.
Look at Dr. Lassane and I, a part of the most educated demographic in this country, Black women. That's why they're afraid of us. That's why we are a threat. So everything that's happening is because things fight the hardest just before they die. And our children need to know that racism, sexism, homophobia, all of those things are dying and they're fighting. So policy.
I've been calling this white supremacy's last stand.
It's their last stand.
This is them taking their last. It
really is their last stand. They're fighting for their lives.
Yeah.
And it's gonna listen. And it's not going to be easy for us. It already hasn't been. And we are already seeing policy that impact us. But we're gonna, my grandma used to say, just keep living.
Yeah. I mean, I echo everything that Dr. Triplett said. When you talked about hope, I was like, hope is a horrible strategy. And so, so I mean, we need to. It's a horrible strategy. And so, while I have it, it's not my strategy, and that's not where I put my faith. I put my faith in Black folks. I put my faith in the tradition that got us here, because the legacy of Black teaching excellence, we can keep hope alive, Stevie. It's just not a good strategy, sis. That's all I'm saying. It's both ends. We're going to keep it alive.
Hope can stay, but it's not the strategy.
It's not the strategy. It's not the strategy. But again, we have the strategies, right? And so when I think about, some very specific resources around those, thinking about Vanessa Siddle Walker's latest book, The Lost Education of Horace Tate. And so she talks about how Black teachers were crossing state lines under duress, in the middle of the night, to make sure that their students had curriculum, to make sure that they were, launching networked resistance campaigns and organizing against what was happening to their students, right? And so because this is not the first time it's been illegal to teach Black history in Black schools. And so what did they do? What did Carter G. Woodson do? He created a curriculum. Teachers created curriculum and were smuggling the curriculum across state lines. You know what I'm saying? And so
brains. That's what it was.
Exactly. And so for me, I could be crazy. I mean, that's always a possibility. But, when people call, people were kind of freaking out after the election. I was like, I had this steely calm about me. Because my thing is, we're going to see something that we've never seen in our lifetime, but they're also going to see something that they haven't seen in their lifetimes. Because we now have ancestors who went through it the first time. Yeah. We now have knowledge to call on, and so I'm not trying to sugarcoat it. I know that it will be difficult, but we are not without guides. We are not without information, and we are not without an understanding of how to fight this thing. And Black educators have always been on the front line. Our commitment has always been to Black children. Yeah. All Black children.
Yeah. Well, conversations like this are part of this tradition.
Yeah,
right?
This conversation will live.
This
in
congregation will
live. For all Black people who can hear my voice, make sure you share this with some Black people who need to hear this conversation. Specifically Black educators. Honestly, I feel like all Black students need to hear this too, because they're, to the point that you made, Dr. Triplett, there's so much that we need to be sharing with our students to make sure that they are completely aware and abreast of all that is going on and all that could have an impact on their life. I think one of the biggest misnomers is that children have to be a certain age in order to be engaged with certain topics or certain conversations. And I find that that's just not the case. I think that we have to find ways to make the conversation applicable to kids of all ages.
And understandable.
And understandable.
Comprehensible.
Yeah.
I have a question. As you both have mentioned authors that you have read, books that you have read, because not only the 20 plus people who have been on this live tonight, who are watching this live, and this is going to live. This is going to live on Binola's YouTube in perpetuity. It's going to, social media has made it so that these videos are going to be around when we're all gone, right? We'll all be gone, and somebody's going to be watching this.
Let's hope they're not also having the same conversation.
Oh, but here we are, right?
Right.
We're having this conversation after Carter G. Woodson, and after who or what should folks go and read?
Resources.
What are some resources? People who know a lot about this topic, who may want to do some enrichment, or folks who happen upon this video and start watching and have no baseline for understanding. Give us and give all of us some resources, some people, some names, some to
get it going.
Study to show thyself approved. Amen?
Yes. There's so much. Dr. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, please, you.
Yeah. There's so much. So the book that I cited, that I read from Asa Hilliard. So it's essays by Teresa Perry, Claude Steele, and Asa Hilliard, Young, Gifted, and Black, Promoting High Achievement Among African American Students. Certainly, because I'm digging in the crates. I'm going back to the foundation, and so these were the books that I cut my teeth on in the 90s. Black Teachers on Teaching, Michelle Foster. So getting all that wisdom, where she interviews Black teachers who taught before desegregation, after desegregation, and just kind of like gleaning all that wisdom. I would say Awakening the Natural Genius of Black Children, Amos Wilson. Fugitive Pedagogy, certainly one of the recent ones, Jarvis Gibbons. There's a lot. There's a lot. I'm gonna pull two more. Teach Freedom, edited by Charles Payne. Education for Liberation in the African American Tradition. Certainly. And I'm gonna stop there for now.
Okay. Dr. Triplett.
Well, listen, I'm gonna start with myself. So I had an
Yes.
Come on.
Grade or not, and you can find it at the lensnola.com. It's called Making the Grade or Not by Dr. Vera Triplett. It's an op-ed that I wrote about the release of decontextualized letter grades and the impact that they have on the morale of schools and students. So let's start with me, shall we?
Yes.
But I also, there's one that Dr. Lassane mentioned earlier, Vanessa Siddle Walker, her book about clandestine. I said, that's the one.
All right.
There I am.
Everybody.
Yes, child. I love it.
Yes.
It is a fantastic read, if I do say so myself.
Yes, it is.
I appreciate that. So, but Vanessa Siddle Walker, who writes about the very thing that Dr. Lassane just mentioned, the clandestine way that Black teachers met in order to be. I talk with my students a lot about the fact that it was illegal for Black people to know how to read, to even have a book. And I can tell you that for some of them, it's the first time they're hearing it, which is interesting because in my day, our parents would talk to us about these things all the time. But at our school, for example, our students are in the process of reading A Brown Girl Dreaming, and they've read The Watsons Go to Birmingham. And so we've talked about all of these different things that have happened throughout history, but we also make it a point to make it relevant to the experiences that they're having today. And so I do think that while there is a lot that we can glean and learn from our ancestors, we have some young people right now that are doing some amazing work. You know, B. Nola, Dr. Lassane, you know, like there are people that are here right now that we can you see, feel, and touch that we need to take advantage of. And so, yeah, but yeah, go read my op-ed.
Come on.
I love it. I love it.
Yes,
I love it.
Absolutely. So one of the things that we love to do is give flowers where we can, when we can. So one, I want to give you both flowers for spending your time with us this evening and sharing your wisdom. Everybody, please also remember that you can ask questions, because y'all got two of the most
if y'all do have any questions,
educated Black women in the country here that have given their time to talk to us.
We'll take a question if we have a question from the audience before we wrap up.
But I wanted to give you both the opportunity to give your flowers, to shout out any educators in your experience that held you to high expectations with love. If you wanted to call their name, shout them out. This is the opportunity. Go ahead and you can do that.
I'm gonna let Dr. Triplett go first.
Sure. So I am born and raised here in New Orleans. I grew up in the 7th Ward. I went to Valina C. Jones School. Gloria.
Oh my goodness. Wait. You went to Jones?
I absolutely went to Valina C. Jones. Wow. I can sing you the song right now today. But listen, Gloria Humphrey Scott was one of the first women African-American assistant principals. And she was over at Valina C. Jones School. And you know, some other very notable people in the Black education space. We have Dr. Melanie Askew here running the Lawn Academy. We have Dr. Danielle Wright running Sonola. So many. I know I'm gonna leave somebody out, but just so many. Stevie, Dren, you know, all of the people that are in this education space, and you know, Crystal Allen, who, you know, she's just showing the people, child.
Yeah, we love Crystal.
Listen, I love a stunner. So, you know, yes, absolutely. And of course, Dr. Lassane, who I'm just meeting here this evening, but who has, you know, I've learned from during this conversation, for sure.
Absolutely. And I've already invited, even backstage, I already invited myself to visit Dr. Triplett's school. So I was like, yeah, we friends now. I'm coming down there.
We're coming too.
Yes.
Y'all come over to the house too, because I got wine.
I'm coming.
Wait. Y'all should all come over to the house. We have a lake.
Oh, okay.
It's gonna be the thing.
So yeah, we have a lake.
We're gonna talk about that.
We'll talk about that offline.
Yes.
You want to give your shout outs, and then we have a question from the audience.
Okay, yeah, there are so many. I mean, y'all know I'm enamored with the ancestors, and then secondly, enamored with the elders. So I am also going to shout out Dren and Stevie at B. Nola, like some of my absolute favorite people in this work. Also shouting out all the Sisters in Education Circle. Sisters in Education Circle is a network of about over 100 Black women educators across the United States and Canada. And so, you know, our elders gather with us. So our elders include people like Joyce King, Gloria Ladson-Billings, Lisa Delpit, Gloria House, Miss Joyce Abbott of Abbott Elementary fame joined us, our elder circle. And the women in the circle, though, Stevie joined us at our last retreat. So she's now in Sisters in Education Circle. And so
I just gotta say, we are honored to have been a part of supporting Sisters in Education Circle
from the beginning.
We've never been to one because it's not our space to be there. We have been a part of Sisters in Education Circle from the very beginning, and are so both grateful and proud of what you have created and developed and built, because it's so necessary. And so I just wanted to say that. Go ahead.
Absolutely. And you know, everywhere, like Dr. Triplett was saying, there are so many, right? So there's Mary McLeod Bethune, but there's so many Marys, you know what I mean? There's so many, Fannie Jackson Coppins, and so many Nanny Helen Burroughs, as she mentioned back in the day. and today. And so, I grew up in Broward County, Florida, where there certainly was a tradition of teaching excellence. So, Mr. Sylvester Robinson and Mrs. Betty Miller, and the school board building in Broward County is named after Kathleen C. Wright, who was a Black woman. And one of the not my high school, so I'm not going to start no foolishness on here, but Ely High School, was named after Miss Blanche Ely, right? And so there's just that tradition is everywhere, and I hope that that's what we're getting across. That every play, like we did it we went everywhere and did our thing, and so. So many folks, and I want to hold up the book that Dr. Triplett mentioned. So this is the Vanessa Siddle Walker book. And then the last one, A Forgotten Sisterhood. The subtitle is Pioneering Black Women Educators and Activists in the Jim Crow South. And so, and so these women were networked, you know what I mean? They were writing letters to each other and helping each other build each other's schools and apprenticing with each other. And, I would say we need to get back to that, but I really appreciate Dr. Triplett's point is that some of us are actually doing it right now as well. So we need to get back to it and also continue to network ourselves with folks who are doing the work right now. So
to close out, what we're going to do, Drea in the comments, I hope I'm saying that right, has asked, given that we're learning now more than ever that all skin folk ain't kinfolk, and we're often fighting against our own to love our kids, what do fugitive pedagogies look like for Black educators?
Lord.
Now listen, because these conversations, we don't have 20 more minutes we're going to make this the last word, this question, but I think this is a good way to end this, because I think strategies around practical strategies around smuggling curriculum or whatever it looks like in 2025 that Carter G. Woodson had to do and what our people had to do, and what Bay teased me. I got LASIK recently and I could see, and so he started teaching me how to see things like Seeley was like Nettie was teaching Seeley, right? How to read, right? What are the formulas? What are the practices that educators now can incorporate, especially when certain conversations are going to be illegal inside of school classrooms, right? I mean, you can't say gay in Florida legally in school, you know what I mean? And so what do fugitive, I love that term, even though I hate that it has to be, but what does fugitive pedagogy look like in this context?
So listen, I think for me, what it looks like is calling a thing what it is. And
come on.
I think what you have to say to people, and what I say to people often in my school is this is mine, and I built it for this specific purpose. And if it's it's gonna die doing what it was supposed to do.
Come on.
Doing the thing that it was meant to do. And so you got to call people out. And very often it went to the point that Drea made about all skin folk and kinfolk. I have a school that is predominantly Black, but I have a number of white students and I have a number of Hispanic students. And if I catch any teacher, Black or white, holding students to different standards for the same behavior, I call it out. I call it out and I ask, why is this student is considered funny, but this student considered aggressive?
A problem.
Let's talk. What are the things? So I think we just have to call it out, and that's the best way to do it for me in my environment. But I also think calling it out in the larger context of the people who have power and authority around things like policy that we talked about earlier.
Dr. Triplett,
I'm a Pisces, a March Pisces.
Wow.
I'm March 12th.
I'm March 10th.
Okay.
Wow.
British. We don't play. Too close to us.
Y'all are kindred for sure.
I love it.
This makes so much sense to me now.
Right. Right.
Dr. Lassane, please.
Yes. Well, I love the comment that you put up with Stevie. Going back to the hush harbors. We need to create spaces where it's just us, including folks. Including we need to be not apologetic about excluding the folk who ain't kinfolk.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are always gonna get in, you know what I mean, because that's what they do. But like we can't do that. We can't afford to do that anymore, right? It's like this is not a dress rehearsal. This is not a dress rehearsal.
Yeah. Not a preach.
And so
once a week.
Right.
Wait. Raise your hand if y'all want to come back next week and talk to them again. Raise your hand. Raise your hand. Man.
No.
Yeah,
This is not a dress rehearsal. This is not
a dress rehearsal.
Real lives at stake. This is real
lives at stake. And that really is what both Sisters in Education Circle is, and also the local work that I'm doing with the Black Teaching Tradition Institute, that I've started doing local work with Charlotte educators, right? And they are very much hush harbors. They're very much hush harbors. So
all right, y'all. Yeah. Well, if you ever want to use our place as a hush harbor, you two are more than welcome. Stevie, of course, we're gonna have to have you come out of.
We could have a Sisters in Education Circle event here.
See, don't do that. I'm ready.
I'm down.
So, I love
Dr. Lassane, Dr. Triplett, I cannot say thank you enough for not only this time tonight, because this time tonight, for what you all have and are doing in the world, is a drop in the bucket, right? Thank you so much for the love, the perseverance, the sacrifice, the willingness to speak truth to power in all places and at all. Frederick Douglass said, the truth is beautiful in all places and at all times.
Yeah.
And being able to speak truth to power is not a characteristic that is found in the majority of human beings walking the planet.
Right.
And that is also by design.
Right.
And so thank you for the courage that it takes, the love and the courage that it takes to be the warriors that you are for our young people, fighting the fight for those who cannot fight for themselves.
So
thank you.
Thank you.
Before we go, I want to give everybody a chance to, if you want to read the 2023 BNOLA Annual Impact Report, please scan the QR code. Again, this will be live and uploaded on BNOLA's YouTube channel, so you can go back and watch and share. Make sure you subscribe, make sure you share. And this is the first of a series, so we will be back every last Wednesday of the month until May.
Through May.
So we'll be back with two other exciting educational giants next month. Stay tuned. Please follow BNOLA on social media. Please follow Sisters in Education Circle. Please follow the Blairisms. Dr. Triplett, do you have a social media for Noble Minds that you want to share?
You can follow Noble Minds on Instagram at Noble Minds 2014.
Please follow Noble Minds at 2014, the Blairisms, the Sisters in Education Circle, and Black Ed for NOLA. Thank you all so much for spending your evening with us tonight. We are excited not only about the other 4 parts to this series, but also for the community power study groups that will begin happening around New Orleans in February. And I'm just talking out of my heart and head, Stevie. We got to figure out a way to share some of what happens in those study groups with the broader community too. So let's think about how we do that. Maybe that's the third part of this. Maybe that's the third iteration of our work together. Let's start planning 3.
Well, y'all, thank you so much for spending your time with us.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Have a great night, everybody. Everybody stay warm, safe, and well wherever you are. We love y'all much. And wait a minute. None of this would be possible without the Institute for Mental Hygiene. Yes. And so I have got to, we should have started there. I'm going to end there. We have to appreciate the Institute of Mental Hygiene not only partnered with us to do the first iteration of the series that we spoke about at the front end.
That is available
on Binola's YouTube, but they also they spun the block and said, you know what? We appreciate so much what you did the first time. We are going to allow you to go forward with our support. And so shout out to Ron McLean, the executive director of the Institute for Mental Hygiene, and shout out to the Institute for Mental Hygiene for all of their support in allowing us to be a part of this. And Stevie said, she said it earlier, awesome, perfect, wonderful. Fantastic. But I promise Ron a personal shout out. Good night, everybody. We love y'all
so much.
Peace.
Good night, Dr. Lassane.
Nice to meet you, Dr. Triplett.